the full history how to make an amp pedal. Well, I'm in the industry for decades, and back in last century, around 1992, I found some documentation about this little fellow here, which is the Usenkettner Tubeman Mark I. This Tubeman was my first invention of a device that you can put in your guitar gig bag, or at that time case. This actually fits in a Fender vintage case for my 61 Stratocaster, and this gives me all the tones that I need in a small format using a tube, and this could go straight into a mixer or into a power amp or into any guitar amp. So I was safe having my 4 favorite sounds in a box with a tube that I can take anywhere, use it in the studio, use it live. And this was in 1992. This, if you want to see this, is my first drawing. Very similar. This has 3 channels, this became 4. And yeah, the layout with a true bypass. And this became even a patented format for guitar devices, as a new breed of guitar device for live and recording. This was me back in the days in the studio with my snakeskin jacket. Yeah, I was touring with a band called the Rainbirds, and this was my touring jacket back then. Okay, the next step, making pedals, was making pedals that are specially designed to have high-end sounds for guitar players that didn't exist using tubes. So I came up with the idea of the Tube Factor, which is kind of a booster or 2-channel device. You know, you can use this in front of any amplifier and make your amplifier a 3-channel amplifier. Imagine your amp is like a clean amp, and then this gives you a crunch tone and a lead tone in one box. Very handy, serious tool for serious players. The other idea I had was something very unique at that time, a Leslie in a foot pedal. I was doing session work in the studio, and I had my Leslie was a Dynacord CLS 22, and I had a 222 as well, and a tube booster in combination to get Leslie tones. This was mounted in a rack, and I thought, you know, 19-inch rack systems, big, heavy, shrink it, make it a pedal, and this became the Tube Rotosphere, which is a legendary pedal played by all my heroes, Jeff Beck, Billy Gibbons, and them all. So nice pedal, a bit noisy but great. See, this is my documentation. This was back in '99. Sorry, this is '96, which is the Leslie, which became the Rotosphere, and this is '99, which became the Replex, another great pedal for the guitar player. Basically, it's an Echoplex and an EP1, the tube Echoplex in a box. Everybody knows the EP2 booster, which is transistor, but this is the real deal. And I'm still very proud of that pedal. I'm still using it today, even though it's bigger than my amp, but it has a magic tone. It's, yeah, to me, my secret weapon. Then I came up with ideas of another amp, programmable foot pedal device for the guys at Usenkettner, but they didn't like my idea, so this thing has never seen the floor. It's called the floor amp, and it's tubes, as you can see. It has the 4 channels. it was actually expandable with effects. This was the concept, but somehow they didn't like my idea, and then I had to decide what to do with all my ideas, and I moved on. And I founded my own company in the end. Besides doing this work, I always have been doing little side projects. This was like a range master in pedal, or very early stage, I think in the 80s or 90s, because I was a big fan of Ritchie Blackmore, so I had these, and I had a few pedals made with Krause and Blug K and B. Maybe somebody has one of those. Very rare, very special. And talking about side projects, this was a nice thing, the Virtual Guitarist, which was a big project for the digital guys. This was using all kinds of playing styles, from Nile Rodgers funky to Keith Richards to rock to metal, for keyboard players playing guitar riffs. And this also has a virtual pedal board in software built in. So I was involved in many kind of pedals, virtual, real. Then I started to do my own prototypes, but I also had the X-Vive Connection, which is a Chinese company, and they are very nice Chinese people that helped a lot with my production in China. So I thought, you know what, it's not about money, it's about relationships. And these pedals are my designs, which I simply gave to them. So you can get some of my tones at a very, very affordable price range. This is like whatever, $50 or 60. And there's, you know, the Golden Brownie became a very successful pedal, which is like a GCM 800 style tone in a mini pedal. The Tube Squasher, which is a more dynamic version of a Tube Screamer. It is a bit more raw. It's using transistors, not so many diodes, so it's more dynamic. Then there's the Dynarock, which is again AC/DC tone in a small pedal. And this Sweet Leo, which is a blend of a Vox and a dirty tweed Fender in like two overdrives in one, and you can blend between the two, which is also unique. And this in a miniature pedal. A low gain pedal, and the newest pedal from them is the Echo Man. I mean, if you are familiar with Memory Man, you know what this is. It's a miniature pedal with 600 milliseconds bucket bridge delay and some nice modulation. The classic thing, just in a small format. So and also the wireless, the U2 wireless. So I helped them as they do help me with my production in China. They are not my manufacturer, but they are around and they are good friends, and they make sure that my quality, or if I have any issues in China, they are and speak and yell in Chinese and some other Chinese, which is very great. So BluGuitar was founded in 2014 in, was it February? Yes. And just the month before the Frankfurt Trade Show in 2014, and I had my first AMP1 prototype. But before the prototype that you could see, I had earlier stages. So even in 2010, I was using a big plastic box on top of my Marshall on my Blug Plays Hendrix DVD recorded live in Karlsruhe. And this was the first prototype of AMP1. It was that size. It had only 2 channels, clean and overdrive, and it had only 50 watts. But this was my spare amp, and this was my second channel actually, and I used it on the recording. So if you listen to this DVD, you can hear AMP1 first stage. It was a blend of the Marshall, the Thomas Marshall over there, which you can see in the video, and the very, very first prototype of AMP1. The next stage was this little Peacemaker, which is again 50 watts. Basic features like clean but then already 3 different overdrive channels, tone control, but no real recording out, and you know, speaker out was not perfect for 16 ohms. So it was a compromise. I mean, if you look at this and how light it is, this is around 2012 probably, and you know, I'm still not seeing any of these pedals in this kind of small format on the market. But I decided this is not good enough for me. I didn't want to compromise. I wanted to have the real deal, to replace my 13 tubes loaded tube head. And I came up with the idea to go all the way. So next step was this fellow. And it's already called the Amp 1, but it's not a 1 as a number, it's still the 1 in a word, inspired by the Mini back then. But you can see all the features that are relevant to the Amp 1 concept, which is the custom control to make it flexible, to have the effects loop switchable from serial to parallel, to have the noise gate, to have a boost that you can dial in. So the custom control was making this boutique. On the rear panel you can see, besides the effects loop, the recording out, the 2 speaker outs and the remote socket. So this is kind of the full feature set that we know from the Amp 1 as it is now. The only thing you can see, which I was not happy with this prototype, is the switches come very close to the knobs. And of course it was compact, but I thought how to improve it. And then if you look at the final housing of Amp 1, you can see the switches were lifted, so the angle of the foot makes sure that you will not touch the knobs. And on the other hand, I had more room for the recess for the handle. So there's more room if you put this on top of a cabinet, so the handle fits underneath it. And we do have the magnetic fixing here. Oh, you see, that's my prototype. Old one, Null Serie. Neodymium magnets that will hold the unit. That was also an invention for how to mount a pedal on a floorboard without Velcro and without the sticky stuff that always is a nightmare, because when it's hot the glue melts and it simply is not clever. But I like this easy lock things. Yeah, and the Amp 1 got a little update just last year with the Mercury edition. Mercury is the same amp, it's the same concept. It is just using all the experience that I gained playing it live on all my gigs and feedback from other players, so to make it maybe even more flexible. And there are fans of the first original versions because it has its own character, but there are a lot of fans of the new Mercury edition. And the history will continue with more Amp 1s and more amps to come. The next one you will see is called the Amp 1 Iridium edition for the metal guys. And this again gives you the concept of having an amp that you can take all around the world with a universal power, with anything you need to plug in the guitar, into a mixing board, into a speaker, into a PA, whatever is needed for a guitar player. It is in this 2 pounds little box that fits into your gig bag. Stay tuned for more to come.